morning. Last year, a couple of days before Christmas, a group of us who play music together once a month at a jazz thing that Parramatta City Uniting Church runs, loaded up our instruments and travelled into Parramatta, into Lee Memorial Church, into Meals Plus, where they were hosting their annual Christmas lunch for the community, anyone who would like to come. It was an open invitation to whoever would like to be there. And so we journeyed down there and dragged out our gear. There were the staff and this extended team of volunteers that had obviously been working for days, weeks, months to get this thing ready. There were tables and chairs in the hall. It was still coming out of COVID, so there was a bit of spacing so people weren't too close together. And it flowed out into the car park where there were shade shelters and tables and drink stations and all sorts of stuff happening. We set up and started to play our music, a bit of jazz and swing, a lot of Christmas stuff with a bit of swing in it as well. It was a great day, and people came from all over the place. There were people who were homeless, many of the regulars from Meals Plus that have breakfast or lunch down there each day. There were people who were elderly and locked in their homes alone and had no family around them. There were families whose resources were low and wanted a decent Christmas lunch. And there were lots of other people who came to socialise, to join in the fun, to share in the meal. And over the day there was something like 700 or 800 people came through. And as each wave of people came through, the food just appeared from I don't know where. It just kept coming and coming. And there was ham and prawns and salads and pasta dishes and breads and dessert and drinks, and it was good food. And everyone seemed to be having heaps of fun, dancing and singing, talking, sharing. It was a great community event. And everyone and anyone was welcome to come. It wasn't exclusive in any way. A great day. I guess it wasn't the most salubrious or lavish event that was held in that city either that day or at that time of the year. Many of the upper class, upper market hotels or restaurants would have hosted far more salubrious events with an exclusive clientele. People in the corporate or whatever life, the rich and the powerful of the city maybe, I don't know. Very different events. Much higher quality food and wines and several courses and personal waiters and waitresses and all the rest. I've not been to those events, I've been to very lower key ones, but there's always a sense of people trying to prove themselves, we put on a face to impress those around us, particularly those who are more senior or those we want to curry favour with. They feel to me less honest than this down-to-earth community event where people are just who they are. When the homeless come or the poor of the city gather, they are vulnerable people. What you see is what you get. It's written in their faces, in their skin, it's written in their clothing, it's written in their speech. What you see is what you get. And they don't try to hide it. They can't. They're honest about who they are and the challenges of their lives and their helplessness. Now, not everyone is, but most I've met are like that. They're humble people, vulnerable people. But the more power, the more prestige, the more privilege we have, the more we hide something of ourselves and want to impress and climb and look good and hide our vulnerabilities. And our egos drive us too much. I've been reading a tale, I guess you'd say, of two feasts. Matthew's story of Jesus talks about two feasts. The second one is a picnic on the beach, a simple affair that thousands of people gather around and Jesus feeds. But prior to that, there was this exclusive party for the local king, Herod, the son of Herod the Great, or one of the sons of Herod the Great, who was that psychopathic, neurotic leader of the region under Rome around Jesus' birth, who had many of his own family killed because he suspected them of wanting his power. He was a mad king. And this was one of his sons. And he and his two brothers vying against each other for more and more power and responsibility, more kingdoms, more territory to rule. He himself had divorced his first wife and taken his brother's wife as his own and married her. And John the Baptist spoke into this and said, look, this is not the way it is. And Herod, well, he was put out, but he feared the God that John spoke of. His wife, Herodias, whoa, she wanted vengeance. And she remembered this. And she never let it go. And he threw this birthday party for himself. And he invited the rich and the famous, the powerful of the land. Anyone he wanted to impress. Anyone who was anybody. And he had them all there. It was this drunken orgy of an event. The best food and wine flowing freely. It was an orgy of food and wine and then murder. His stepdaughter, Herodias' daughter, danced. This seductive dance that entranced Herod and those who were there. And at the end he promised her anything she wanted. She consulted with her mother, who said, I want John the Baptist's head on a plate. And she asked Herod for that. And before all these guests, where he promised, not willing to lose face, he delivered John the Baptist's head on a plate. When Jesus got the news of this, he was grief-stricken and went out into a lonely place to grieve and to process and think. But the crowds who followed him and loved him hung off his words and who he was and what he promised, followed, and they found him. And having compassion for these crowds, he talked to them. He shared the life of God's reign, of what God's love was about. That we're all invited in and included, and no one is excluded. And everyone is valuable and important and has dignity and respect in the reign of God. And as the day wore on and got late, the disciples said, look, Jesus, send these people away to the local villages. They're hungry, to go and buy food. And Jesus said, no, you feed them. They said, you're joking. Look at what we've got. A few loaves of bread and a couple of fish. What's that going to feed these thousands of people? And Jesus says, look, put them in groups, and he blesses the bread and breaks it and breaks it. And the food appears and it just keeps coming and coming. And the disciples distribute the food that keeps coming, and there's enough for everyone and some left over. That's what it felt like at Meals Plus. No matter how many people turned up, the food kept coming. I don't know where it came from, who donated it, where it was stored, how it was produced. It just kept coming. This blessed food that fed the multitude. And like Meals Plus, Jesus' party on the beach was there for everyone. All the people, anyone who gathered, anyone who came, ordinary people, lowly people, struggling people, people who were doing it hard and tough, who needed hope, who needed life, who needed dignity and respect. They were all there. And in this party on the beach, God was present in this deep and profound way. And they experienced this love of God. Food for the body and for the soul that gave them hope and life. And I think that's what many of the people in Meals Plus, not just at their Christmas celebration, but every day receive. Paul, who runs it, Paul Musa, knows everyone. He makes it his business to know everyone who comes in the door, to hear their story. And these people who come to Meals Plus are known. They are known and respected. And I think that's the highest form of dignity and respect, to be known and loved. And he echoes the way of Jesus, the love of God, who knows us intimately and loves us. And I just love this image of these tables where food just comes and everyone is welcome and everyone shares the same food and everyone brings their own story and their own life and their own challenges and pain and joy and hope and shares that around the table. And there's music and singing and dancing and there's joy. And that was Christmas. In fact, whilst I'd celebrated with half of my family the week before, on Christmas Day I came down with COVID the day before. I was home alone and missed the Christmas lunch. So last year, gathering with the people of Parramatta was my Christmas lunch. And it was a lovely day. It was a lovely day together. And there were many people. And God was present. And I think that's an image and a model for our world, for what the church and families and communities can be like. Sharing food around a table, sharing hope and love and stories, and everyone is welcome and invited, and no one excluded, because that's the love of God. Amen.